Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be going over my 2024 presidential election of the week. Before we get started with the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure you hit that bell so you don't miss another video that I post, and make sure to follow the Twitter in the description down below, as well as join our Discord server so you don't miss another video that I post. Without further ado, let's get into this. And so pretty much right now, guys, President Trump is in an extremely strong position for the presidency. Biden has not led a single state poll in these swing states, I believe, since January, which is a very long time, guys. In 2020, Biden basically led in most of the swing states, including places like Ohio for a period of time. He even led in the aggregate in Texas for some point. He led in Florida for a little bit. Even in Iowa, he was leading by like 2 points for like a couple of weeks, and he only ended up barely winning the electoral college in 2020. If you could see, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona were the closest states in the 2020 presidential election. If it wasn't for this, if these would have gone Republican, Donald Trump would have tied in the electoral college with Biden. He would have won through the House of Representatives, and Pence probably would have broken his own tie. It basically probably would have been like a 50-50 vote, and then Pence would have basically broken his tie at that point. And so pretty much as of right now, it is safe to say that, 43,000 votes basically saved Biden from losing the presidential election, which is even closer than 2016. And so if we were to actually look at the margins, see Biden 0.24 here, 0.63 here, 0.31 here. And the problem is that on this day, Biden's approval rating was at 52% nationwide, and he ended up getting up 51% of the popular vote. Donald Trump, I believe, was sitting at like a 45% approval rating. He almost got 47%. He ended up getting like 46.8%. I think Biden got like 51.3. So it was a 4.5 plus Democratic national environment, and he barely won the election. And so now that Biden's approval rating is sitting right at around the high 39%, low 40s, you could argue that he's lost ground in major swing states. And with a lot of developments, especially, I'm going to put this out there. If they seize Trump Tower or any of his properties, Biden would basically be DOA this cycle. There, at that point, there'd be no chance for Biden to win because too much of the electorate would not be fond of that, in my opinion. Even a lot of independents would probably find that very jarring, to be honest. That optically does not look good. And there's even the latest poll actually just came out with a bunch of issues, and Trump actually leads for the first time on the issue of democracy. So clearly, indicting the former president is not working for Biden because Biden says, "Oh, it's democracy and we're the party of democracy and all this stuff." But then when you have your little goons indict your political opponent, it's obviously not going to help you as much as you think it is. And so he actually, I think it was like 40% or something like that on the issue. But the fact that Trump's even leading on an issue like that is crazy. It should be a way bigger lead, but the fact that a Republican is even leading that issue is pretty crazy because Democrats naturally hold that advantage. And issues like abortion that were big issues for new voters in 2022 are now a wash in 2024. If you look at most of the polling, Biden leads, I think, at most by 10 points on abortion, and most of them are like less than 5 point leads. And some of them, there's even like a statistical tie in some of these polls with abortion. And I believe, like in 2020, Biden was leading on that issue by like over 20 points on average. So his advantage with those voters have also fallen as well. And so that combined with third party candidate support being at an all-time high, this is going to be a disaster for the incumbent president. So for the safe Republican states, I'm gonna actually list, a couple here. You basically have, the traditional ones from 2020, which puts President Trump at 110. You'd have Alaska be over 15 points. South Carolina is probably going to be over 15 points. You're going to have Maine's second, excuse me, be a larger margin, as well as Nebraska's first and Nebraska's at large be all safe states. These are all plus 15, Democratic states. I think California is safe. I think Washington is safe. I think DC, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Vermont are the safe Democratic states for the incumbent president, which does put him at only 93 safe electoral votes as of right now. I've also forgot to Hawaii, so that does actually give him 97. Now, Hawaii could be a lot closer because of all the fires and stuff that have been going on there. However, I don't think that because of that, Trump's not going to flip the state. However, instead of being like D plus 30, it's probably going to be like D plus 20 or something like that. Like it'll be significantly closer than previous cycles. The new addition to the safe states that are plus 15 for Trump is the state of Iowa. I think Trump can genuinely win Iowa by over 15 points this cycle. Turnout for Biden there was abysmally low compared to Trump there. Even in primary turnout, Trump leads him by like 20 points or even a little bit more than that. And I think just with the overall disapproval rating of Biden, I don't think that's going to work. And with a lot of immigration issues going on, I think Iowa's going to massively swing to the right. And because of Biden's unpopularity, I think it's going to vote for Trump by easily over 15 points. It's probably like plus 18 at this point in time. Now, looking at the likely states, Texas, Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia are all going to be in this category because of the fact that in Texas, the border, clear, strong sign for former President Trump. He's looking very solid, in the southern border area. And the reason why is because a lot of Tejano voters actually ended up voting for him in 2020 because of the fact he was actually stricter on illegal immigration. A lot of people thought that the southern part of Texas was going to shift more Democrat because of Trump. It actually ended up being the opposite effect. And so, because of that, Trump was actually able to save his, margin in Texas by a little bit. I think if the margins there would have stayed the same, Trump would have only won Texas by like 2 or 3 points instead of like almost 6 points. So that actually helped him. And I do think those trends are going to continue. And a lot of the, urban suburban areas are going to continue to shift right as well, in my personal opinion. I think that's also going to be the case as well. In the state of Florida, Miami-Dade will probably flip to Donald Trump by a couple of points. He probably wins it anywhere from like 3 to 8 points, something in that range. It's basically like a flip of Biden's margin per se. I think in Georgia, Donald Trump is going to do a lot better in the Atlanta area. A lot of third party defectors are going to end up voting for somebody like RFK or Cornel West. RFK, I'd expect, would get a decent amount of the black vote in Atlanta, in my opinion. And so, because of that, I think that Donald Trump is going to have a strong performance in Georgia. He probably wins it by like 6 or 7 points as of right now. It's actually a pretty big win. I also have North Carolina at R plus 9. I have Ohio at like R plus 13. So that's already a big landslide too. And I have Florida as like an R plus 12, 13, 14 state. Place like Pinellas County would flip back. Like if you look at the state here, this county is going to flip. This one will obviously flip. Duval will flip back. Osceola County may even flip, and a place like West Palm Beach might even be on the brink of flipping as well. Even places like Leon County might get within 10 points. Orange County is probably going to get within either 10 points or 5 points. And in the primary, Trump actually did exceptionally well here, and he may do even better than expected here because the Democrats actually didn't even hold the primary in Florida since the party is in such disarray there. They actually didn't even hold the primary, which is probably going to weaken Democratic turnout as a whole in the state as well. And so, because of that, I do actually think that he is going to be able to pull off an upset victory in that, not an upset victory because he's expected to win Florida, but he's going to pull off an upset huge margin in the state, possibly almost by 15 points as of right now. I mean, if you're shifting the popular vote for Donald Trump to win it, you're effectively giving him the electoral college at that point. I think states like Oregon, Colorado would still be likely, however, they're significantly closer. Oregon's probably like only D plus 8 or 9. Colorado sitting right above that 5 point margin, probably like 5.5. Illinois is like an 8.9 point win for the current president. I think New York would probably actually be like only a 7 or 8 point win as well. If you look at the state of New York, in 2020, if you actually look at this, there was a lot of swings towards Republicans. Even in a year where Donald Trump lost re-election, he actually ended up getting in the city area, and I think that that's going to continue. And a lot of like upstate New York will probably trend Republican. A lot of these counties are probably going to shift back. So that combined with more trends in the city area is probably going to cause Trump to do a lot better this cycle, and he probably gets it almost within five, which I think he can. I think Rhode Island, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, those are easy flips for the president as well. Not flips, but current holds for the current president. I don't think that'd be hard. Maine's first probably goes likely Democrat as well. And so we are coming to the array of closer swing states that are going to be decided by less than 5 points. I think Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada are all lean Republican states. I think that these are going to be pretty easy wins for former President Trump right now. He's currently leading all of these states, by multiple points, for the exception of Wisconsin, which he's only leading by a point. And last cycle, there were many states where he was losing them by 8, 7, 9 points in the aggregate and only ended up losing them by like three or less. So I feel like if Trump is leading in these aggregates, I do think he's gonna probably get what the polls are saying roughly. I think in Wisconsin, his support's probably underestimated just because of how off the polls are there. So I think that you could say it's probably a 3 or 4 point win as of right now. Same thing in Michigan. I'd say a 2 point win is reasonable. Pennsylvania, 3 point win seems reasonable, which would actually give Dave McCormick the Senate win, by the way, just because ticket splitting during presidential years is not as common as before. Now, here's the thing with Virginia, I think it's really close. I think Virginia is like only a basically like a 2 point win for Biden. I think it's a 2 point win. Youngkin just endorsed Trump recently. So I think that's going to help him a lot, in a state like Virginia. I think that, the fact that Youngkin even won the state in the first place on issues that are still relevant right now, and on top of illegal immigration because of the border crisis, I do think that Virginia is going to be significantly closer this cycle as well. I think Nebraska second is an easy flip for Trump. He probably wins it by like 2 points as of now, to be honest. And I also think that even the state of New Mexico, guys, New Mexico is probably going to be like a point win for Biden. I think it's the closest lean state for Biden as of right now, just because of the fact that right now Biden is in a really bad spot with these kind of voters, especially Hispanic voters that are trending to the right. Even in a place like Michigan, the latest poll has him up by 8, has Trump up by 8. Now, do I think Trump's going to win by 8 in Michigan? No, because if that was the case, then New York would probably be under 5, Colorado would be under 5, Illinois would be under 5. Like it would be really, really bad. But I do think that the reflection of African American voters really shifting towards the former president is true. In the poll, the exit polls in Michigan show Biden won, voters of color by 62 points in 2020 in that state. And in this poll, he only has an advantage of 21 points in the state of Michigan with African American or at least voters of color. And then with whites, he actually does 5 points better compared to the exit polls from CNN in this new poll. And so that puts him in a really strong place in Michigan, but also in places like Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada. Like he's clean sweeping the board here. And I think that honestly, I think Maine does flip. I think Maine is a flip, especially with really high third party turnout. I think that the former president can actually win the state as of right now. And for the last tilt, Republican state, I actually do have Trump winning Minnesota as of right now. Now, I know you guys are going to be like, oh my God, that's crazy. There's no way. Biden is significantly more unpopular. Biden's turnout was really bad in the state. Trump actually almost got a higher percentage of the vote than Biden even did in the primary. And not only that, uncommitted votes from Minneapolis were significantly high. Very, very high numbers there. Very, very high. And so that's not going to be the best look for the current president there. And I think right now Trump could actually squeak out a very narrow victory in Minnesota as of right now. It would be the closest state on the whole map, but I do think that he might actually be able to squeak out the victory and be the first president to win it, or be at least the first Republican candidate to win it since 1972 when Richard Nixon was able to win the state. And I think for New Hampshire, it is a tilt Democratic state. I think that some white suburban votes and the Chris Sununu types and things like that, which even though he did endorse Trump, but I feel like as of right now, I think New Hampshire is just too Democratic. I think it'll probably barely stay with the current president as of right now. I mean, it could easily change, and that would give Trump 329 electoral votes. So it doesn't make that much of a difference. But I think as of right now, this is actually the current map that I have for the presidential election. A lot of issues like, illegal immigration affecting, communities, especially after the whole Lake and Riley situation that we've had in Georgia. She was a nursing student and got killed by an illegal immigrant. That's really having a sort of nationwide effect to a certain extent. You could argue the economy is not, it's getting quote unquote better on paper, but people are not really feeling it. And also, too, a lot of times, the reason why the unemployment's going down is because a lot of people are having to get second or even third jobs in order to stay afloat. So really, it's just that people are getting two or three jobs, and that makes the unemployment go lower when it's really just people are getting overworked and they need more jobs to be able to pay the bills that they were able to pay 3 4 years ago. And a lot of the jobs that are even coming out are a lot of like fast food jobs, a lot of jobs that are not really making a big impact in manufacturing areas, which is going to be a problem for President Biden. That's going to be a huge issue because there are a lot of issues with things like that in the Midwest. And so I think that's really going to push, Trump to the finish line. And I think illegal immigration is going to be more important at this point in time as well. That's really what won him the election in 2016 because the economy back then honestly wasn't the worst, but he was still able to win because he really focused on the immigration stuff. Biden's one winning issue, which was COVID/slash healthcare, is now basically gone. It's not relevant anymore because COVID was really the only reason why he was leading on the healthcare issue, and COVID's gone now. So unless we get COVID again, which I don't really see that happening, I don't think that that's going to be, I don't think that's going to affect the election in any way, shape, or form. And I even remember thinking about who I was going to support in 2020 because I used to not like Trump and I was kind of rooting for Biden. And then I saw the debates and I was like, no, I got to go with Trump because I thought about it retrospectively like, okay, COVID's not going to be around for the next election cycle. It's just not going to. Like at that point, we all kind of knew, okay, by like in a year, it'll probably be completely on, which pretty much was the case, at least for me in my state. The lockdowns were relatively done pretty quickly. They weren't super long. Um, and so I think because of that, that issue for Biden is now gone, and that was his winning issue. That's the reason why he won the election. If it wasn't for coronavirus, Trump would have probably won re-election fairly easy. He probably would have gotten this map actually, which is quite funny that we're now back at this. You can make the case, okay, maybe Minnesota goes Democrat, maybe Maine's at large goes, but I think as of right now, I think Donald Trump is currently winning these states as of right now. And President Biden's holding the states that he holds. No third party candidates are getting electoral votes. I think RFK in this scenario is probably getting like 7%, 6% of the national popular vote. Jill Stein's getting like 2 or 3. And Cornel West is getting maybe almost one, maybe like 1.5. And Trump's probably getting like in the 40s. Biden is probably either in the low 40s or possibly even in the high 30s. And it would make sense because realistically, a lot of times when presidents have an approval rating, they tend to match that approval rating on their popular vote margin. Like Obama had a 53% approval rating or 54%. He got like 51. I think Clinton had like 52. He got 40 something because of the fact that there was a third party vote share, splitting thing that did happen. George W. Bush had like a 52%. He ended up getting 41% or 51%. So that's the reason why, that was really the case. It's just the approval rating is actually a pretty good indicator of how incumbent presidents perform in election cycles in terms of their vote share or at least percentage in the popular vote. And so that is basically it for this analysis, guys. If you guys did enjoy the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Please make sure to hit that bell so you don't miss another video that I post. And make sure to please follow the Twitter in the description down below and join our Discord server so you don't miss our community talks. And I hope to see you guys very, very soon.